Hello, and welcome to the What We've Watched podcast. This is episode 99. I'm Chris.
This is Emmett.
And this week, top 5 of 1999.
Yes. Final top 5 of the 90s.
Very, a lot of movies we talked about. A lot of movies. Not just our final top 5 of the 90s, also our penultimate decade top 5.
Yeah. Do you want to talk about how we're doing the next one?
No, we'll throw that at the end of this episode.
Okay.
Yeah. So 1999, big year in movies. Holy crap.
Yeah, pretty huge. Anybody who kind of is really familiar with like movies or movie buff type people probably know that like 1999 is one of those kind of often talked about. You know, it's one of those like watershed like movie years.
It's like an 86 or an 84 or
Well, sort of. I mean, those were just years that happen to have like some movies that we really like, but like it's 99 is one of those ones that people really talk about for not only just the sheer number of quality movies, but like also just how like the significance to the industry that year had with sort of the developments and stuff. You can read all about it. Like, just Google like 1999 movies, and like there's so many articles and like all kinds of stuff about how
ridiculous year for rolling blockbusters.
Yeah,
like it was just one big hit movie into the next. Like Hollywood made a lot of money in '99 off a lot of films.
It was big that way, but it was also big just in terms of a lot of different like. Yeah, like I say, just Google that.
There's some interesting stuff there.
There's a lot of articles just about how, there are so many interesting kind of developments and changes and stuff like that in the industry at that time, as well as just being like a ton of good movies.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's a very interesting year. Very interesting way to kind of finish off that decade.
I definitely had some trouble with picking my top 5 out of this because I was just like, I really like all these films.
Yeah,
like as usual, the higher ends of the list were easier.
I have a top 5.
Yeah,
but
I'm also stupid.
In a way,
so good.
In a way, aside from my number 1,
yeah,
as usual, in a way, like the rest of them, the order doesn't really matter that much because it's the other 4 movies that were kind of the ones that are the most notable for me. And then for like honorable mentions or also rounds or whatever,
a bunch of those could have just been in my top 5 as well.
Oh, easily. And not only that, but beyond my list and my honorable mentions list, there are lots of other great movies from that year that I just didn't make note of because they're not necessarily my kind of thing, or I just don't have too much of a personal connection to them. But like they're like my list, even with all the honorable mentions and stuff, it doesn't include like many other like very highly acclaimed and great films of that year, which I totally recognize the fact that they were great. I just don't have as much of a personal connection or experience with them. But yeah, it's crazy. Like there's so much good stuff that year.
Yeah, no, I
had sort of forgotten.
Spoiled for choice. Yeah,
like I didn't even realize like how crazy it was.
Also, like thinking back to how many of these I saw in the theater, I must have gone to the theater like 20 times that year. It's nuts. Yeah. Like I know a couple of these like probably spilled over like into like early. I almost said early 2017 into early 2000. So maybe I saw them. So like, but. Holy cow!
Well, especially stuff that maybe had like limited releases near the end of the year type thing, or
Yeah, we'll get. There's often like
plus
whatever is the big Christmas Day release. Good chance you can see that like the 5th of January too. It's usually still in the theater by then.
Plus, I mean, by then I was starting to think about like DVD and things like that.
Exactly.
By that point, right? So,
for sure.
I'd started getting DVDs like. Fairly early on. Like, I was a pretty early adopter on DVDs. Like, I was probably starting to get them, like, within kind of, the first little bit that they started coming out, like, around maybe 97-ish, Like, it was quite early on. because I remember the first couple I got. I've brought this up on the podcast before, but the first couple I got were like gifts.
Oh, right.
Because it was like, people were just like, oh, we know that you're like getting DVD, you have a DVD player now, but you need some DVDs. So like, I think the first one I ever got was like The Usual Suspects. I think I mentioned that when we talked about that. That was a gift, and then the Blade Runner Director's Cut DVD.
Yeah, I got
that from like my mom, so that was a gift. And then, because early on they were still pretty expensive a lot of times, right? Like relatively speaking, I mean they weren't crazy expensive, but compared to they weren't like VHS when those were like
with the decline.
When those were super crazy expensive in the earlier days.
But by that point, by late '90s, like VHS had gotten so cheap.
Yeah,
it was.
But so they weren't like that expensive, and they weren't even. But they were in that sort of like CDs and stuff were like they were that sort of $30 kind of thing. So you had to be kind of choosy. And then like I remember when they first
were CDs like $30
for like forever, for so long.
Wow. I must have just always bought. I don't think I would have ever paid $30 for a CD. I must have always just bought stuff cheap, like on sale and stuff.
Well, we bought a lot of used CDs because there was good used CD stores.
Because I can't think there's any way I would have bought a. But I mean, now like CDs are like a $12.
Yeah, which is really not that much less when you think about it.
Yeah.
Like, for the amount of time that it's been.
Oh yeah. But the thing is most things don't go down in price, so.
Yeah. Well, I mean, stuff like that does, but yeah. But I mean, like now it's like you can find like DVDs for like a couple of bucks, like new, like when they throw them in those bargain bins and stuff in stores, and they're like brand new copies, but they're like like $4.99, and heck, like for some decent sales, like sometimes for like Boxing Day sales or Boxing Week sales now, I guess. You can sometimes get like new Blu-rays for like $5 for certain titles. So I mean, like I've got a couple of things like that. So I mean, like it's crazy.
They ordered too many. That
stuff is crazy cheap now. But like then it was like DVDs were like pretty much like $30, and so I remember when I first started seeing, and I mean it was fairly early on. It was like maybe by like 98, early 99 maybe. You started to see like occasionally there would be stuff that was like extra cheap. Yeah, it was like maybe like because it wasn't like they were just trying to move it or like for whatever reason,
order too many.
For whatever reason. And like I've started seeing like and that's like when like the bargain hunting started, and I was just like, it's actually possible to get DVDs cheap sometimes. Exactly. You just gotta look for it.
Too early in the kind of like the rise of the DVD to get like secondhand DVDs and stuff. Yeah, people weren't giving them.
There wasn't. Because it was all just still like mostly early adopters at the time.
Yeah. So the DVD players still were expensive. Yeah. So.
Anyways,
I mean, I didn't own one. It was years before I mean,
they weren't that expensive. No. They weren't like they weren't like when VCRs first came out, or even when Blu-ray players first came out. Those are crazy. Right. Like DVD players weren't that expensive, but they weren't like now where it's like $50 or $40 for a DVD player.
I've never owned a DVD player on its own. It was either my DVD drive in my computer.
Which was not cheap.
No, they're not cheap. Well, that's because
back in the day,
because they were also writers, as well. So that is why. But they were not cheap. Of course, neither were original CD-ROM burners either. But
that's what I mean.
I remember those being like $300.
All that stuff was not
now
cheap.
You couldn't give one away.
Yeah.
Or like I think the only like I guess sort of more dedicated like TV hookup was. I guess my Xbox 360. Yeah. Which, I mean, I guess that's, years and, that came out years and years ago.
Yeah.
Or maybe the first Xbox played DVDs. No. I don't think so.
It might have, because PS2 did. Because it was PlayStation 1 started with CDs. PS2 went to DVD, and then PS3 went to Blu-ray. So it was a step each time, so... first Xbox probably played DVDs, but I don't know. I don't remember.
Impossible to look up. Because it's all Xbox One or 360.
Yeah, well,
nobody remember. It had such a short lifespan.
Well, it's all right. We got to move on anyway, so.
All right. So I know you're first up this week.
I am.
Yeah. Ties.
Crossovers, you mean?
Yeah, crossovers.
Yeah, I mean, there'll be some, I'm sure.
Yeah. Two. I'm guessing two.
You're guessing two?
unless you surprise me with something real. But I'm guessing too. But, yeah.
Okay.
All right. So what do you got? What's your number 5?
So my number 5 is a film that I think probably a lot of other people probably liked more than I did. Oh. It's a really highly talked about or highly acclaimed film, and I liked it, but
so it made it on your list.
Well, yeah, for sure, but not as much as what everyone. It's one of those ones that I felt like everyone kind of went a little bit overly gaga for, but well, it'll be easier to explain why it's on my list versus anything else at the end. Yeah, but so I'll get into that more later. But for now, it's Being John Malkovich.
It's that is top of my also rans.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay, so for me, the reason that I'd use this one is because a lot of the other movies that I remember, I haven't seen it in quite a while, and a lot of the other movies that I remember liking, I either have, it's been so long and I don't remember enough to really say this was a great film, or it's stuff that I know wasn't really that good, but
enjoyed it at the time, and that was
or I still enjoy it for certain specific reasons. But I'm just it's not a great film overall. So I decided that it's better to pick something that I know is well respected and good, that I do like a lot, or that I do think is really interesting. But it's number 5 because it's just I don't think it's. I didn't like it as much as what a lot of people. But obviously, it's a really interesting movie. A lot of people...
I feel like I'm in the same boat as you.
A lot of people cite it as, just... yeah, it was kind of... I don't know how to describe it, but yeah, I mean, it's just it's sort of odd and quirky, but has some really good performances. I mean, it's such an oddball concept that it's almost kind of what even is this?
So much of the oddness about it.
I feel I don't really understand it. Let's put it that way. I feel I don't really get what the point of this movie was. I don't really see what it's trying to say, really. Yeah. But it's interesting on the basis of its uniqueness, its well executedness, if that's a word, and especially on the performances. John Malkovich is great. And John Cusack is really good. Who was this? Cameron Diaz, a very different kind of performance for her at the time.
Strangest autobiography that could not possibly be true.
Yeah, but stuff like the whole
tall tale almost.
But stuff like the whole thing with, I don't know. It just it's weird. I don't really know how to describe it.
I wish I'd actually seen this movie more recently.
So do I, because I think I could probably... But still,
I only, clearly only remember, just a couple of things out of it.
I remember... I have a lot of, impressions of things. I remember, moments.
The weird half floor when they get off the elevator.
Yeah, I don't really remember, whole scenes well, but I remember a lot of, moments, which, I mean, I guess is kind of what really matters in some ways. But... mostly I just remember, I was very impressed with the performances and things like that. It's just a really interesting concept, but I don't know, somehow...
It had a very intriguing,
it didn't quite...
what are they going to show me next kind of feel to it.
Yeah, I mean, there's an unpredictability, because when you do a concept like this, it's kind of, all bets are kind of off. Yeah. It's you don't really know, where is it going, what are they doing... And that is also kind of a fault in a way, because when you can kind of do anything, then nothing really matters, because you can't kind of wrap your head around,
Well, you have to make the things you specifically choose to do. Yeah. They need to serve a very specific purpose.
And the only thing that really saves it,
story-wise or plot-wise,
and the only thing that really saves it from being kind of just that sort of scattered mess, is very well executed, and the acting, that's really the things that kind of make it work, I think. If it wasn't for that, then I think it would just be a total mess.
Yeah. But it is a very much liked movie. It is But yeah, it is definitely one I should probably crack down and see again.
Yeah.
It turns out like, oh no, I don't like this at all. No, but no,
I like it. I mean, I always liked it. I just, I thought that people went a little crazy for it in comparison to how I felt it really, But that's just, maybe it's just not personally super to my taste.
Yeah.
But, obviously it's still very interesting. Some really good things about it. It's on the list. And I'll explain, like I say, more towards the end because it ties in with the sort of my honorable mentions and stuff. So yeah. Anyways, number 5 being John Malkovich.
Excellent. My number 5 is both comedies, Office Space and Galaxy Quest. 2 really great comedies. One, Galaxy Quest, a parody of Star Trek and, well, kind of a lot of stuff, like Star Wars, just everything.
Yeah, it's sort of a parody of that sort of world of
genre
of a sci-fi show that had a fan base, and then it ended, and then like the actors got older, and then but
they
of course,
just all they do is the convention stuff.
Yeah, they just like do conventions and stuff because they're so typecast and stuff, and then the fans are bugging them about everything. I mean, it's it's that standard.
Some of them it was that thing where it's like some of them felt they deserved more success.
Yeah.
Than they got. Others of them actually got like success posted, and so like you had that whole mixed bag. Yeah. And then like the cast is so amazing. Like you think usually for parody films you get a bunch of comedians, and like it's not you're not filling your cast with like a lot of like high level like listed like actors in
I mean it depends on what you're going for. This type of thing.
But especially sort of more in the like this era of parody with stuff like Scary Movie and stuff like that, which had there's a lot of people we didn't know about at the time who have since used those things to become more well-known comedian actors. But with like Sigourney Weaver, Sigourney Weaver, and Tony Shalhoub and Tim. Toolman Tim. Tim Allen and Alan Rickman. Sam Rockwell. It's just like holy crap. And
pretty early Sam Rockwell.
He's,
anything sort of pre like Hitchhiker's Guide. Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy is kind of like early Sam Rockwell because most people didn't know who he was. Or I guess when did Confessions of a Dangerous Mind come out? Because I guess that was but I think even that was after that. I think that was around early 2000s as well, wasn't it?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah. Pretty sure it was.
2002. So quite a bit.
So it was like basically anything before that, I think, pretty much constitutes early Sam Rockwell because that's kind of the first thing he got really kind of known for. It's like a leading actor, anyways.
Definitely that really gave him that visual boost for people. And then I guess it probably would have been like Iron Man after that. I guess it was only.
Well, that's probably one of the biggest mainstream things he's done, but
a Moon kind of, which I know isn't that old, but that really, But I mean, it was that a real good like wind up into the film, and it did a good job of like being a parody, but not like parodies can definitely go down a route that is like and I think they did a real good job of I guess maybe it helped having good actors and clearly a budget and stuff like that helped them make this like. You could have almost made this movie, like, not a parody with all exactly the same elements.
I mean, it's...
like, you could have made it, like, a more... there could have been a more serious, like, where we're clearly drawing inspiration from other things element, but of course, like, the movie clearly takes place in a world where... Like, there's no Star Trek. Galaxy Quest was the Star Trek.
But I mean, the nature of it. I mean, it's kind of like when you're talking about like that thing you do. It's kind of
there's a good example.
It's pulling ideas from these sort of tropes that have built up around the idea of a show like that.
Like the show is the trope. in this.
Well, and the whole thing with, you know, what happens afterwards when you're like typecast, and then, but you have this huge fan base of like fans, but like all they really care about is the show you did like 20 years ago or whatever it is, you know, and it's like that whole kind of thing, you know, that all the Star Trek actors have gone through, like that's and I mean, an inevitable thing.
Oddly enough, like
or Doctor Who actors, you know,
like most of the people that were in Next Generation were more or less, if it wasn't for the fact that the movies, you know, were sort of in this boat, like
to some degree,
you know, like you didn't see a lot of those people. Like, it wasn't just like, oh, there's all the actors from Star Trek and all these other shows. That just sort of didn't happen. You got your Patrick Stewart here and there, and you got you know, a couple of people.
But it wasn't really till like the 2000s that even I think that started to like they even started to really break out of that like very much at all. Like even. I mean, like, Shatner being, like, the major, you know, thing of that. It's like, who remembers anything Shatner did other than Star Trek? Until, like, he started doing, you know, all the stuff that he did, like, since then, like, with, you know, Boston Legal and stuff, where, like, he actually became known as, like, oh, now he's, like, you know, suddenly everyone was like, oh, he's actually a really good actor.
He wrote Tech War.
And it's like, suddenly everyone's like, oh, he's actually a really good actor, and he's, like, winning Emmys and blah, blah, blah for this, like, quirky like lawyer show, and it's like it was kind of like this weird rebirth of like William Shatner
after an actor that had kind of more or less been gone for like 30 years
after like decades of people just being like, oh, he's
like a joke,
he's Captain Kirk and nothing else, or he's a joke, right? So very odd kind of thing, but that didn't really happen until after this. So it's pretty on the Galaxy Quest is pretty on the nose for how things were for pretty much all those people for like, you know, 20 years at least.
And then I just love that. I really like that whole. I've always been a fan of that whole, like, I guess it's a bit of like a fish out of the water scenario where they're like, oh, they have to pilot an actual spaceship, which of course they don't have any idea. You know.
And I mean, there's definitely a huge sort of feel good aspect to it of like the whole kind of storyline of like they have to a lot of them rise up to each other. They have to rise up to the occasion and like become the crew that they were pretended to be when they were actors, and then you know and actually work together and actually do great things and be heroic and save the day. Which is like, you know, it's just a really sort of positive message that is kind of, you know, sure, it may not be very realistic, but positive messages. You know, like
no, it's good.
Like is what you want, you know, in this day and age, I think, especially, you know. So.
Also, I knew it was a liked film, but I didn't realize how liked. Like, it is super high rate. It's 90% on Rotten Tomatoes. I was like,
there's nothing really majorly wrong with it. I think if you're not really into it, it's just not to your taste.
But I guess. Yeah, exactly.
But you can't really cite anything significantly wrong for it. The effects are good. Like,
well, that was the thing. They had budget,
like 90s effects. They. I mean, obviously, it's getting to the end of the 90s, so they were starting to get pretty solid anyway. But you know, the effects are decent. The acting's all good. You know, like you said, they got a lot of really good actors and stuff, and it's well written.
I guess it's the funny thing is, it's actually in some ways more highly rated than like the thing it's parodying. Because, like, are any of the Star Trek Next Generation movies rated 90%?
I have no idea. But that's...
maybe.
But, I mean, you know, it's not even really a fair comparison, because that just means that it's more... It's, like, more mainstream. It's more kind of... It's brought down to a more digestible...
But that's what I'm saying. Like, it's interesting that the parody of a thing can be brought, like, to that more, that more mainstream than the thing itself, when... You think, like, what's more mainstream than Star Trek? You know? I mean, even if you don't watch it, you know, you've heard of it, you know? Like, there's just, you know...
Yeah, but knowing of it and being, like, into it is a different thing.
And then the other one is, the other comedy's Office Space,
All right.
which...
So Office Space is my number 4.
Oh, so, okay, excellent. We can jump in on that.
Yeah, we can combine on that one.
It's... Now, that's a movie that I have seen many times.
Yeah, I mean, it's one of those, like, all-time classic comedies. It is ridiculously funny.
Like, super clever.
There's just...
Very quotable.
Yeah, I mean, well, crazy quotable.
I mean, we've been using quotes from it for...
I quote it all the time.
Ever since we saw it.
All the time. Yeah. You know, and it's one of those kind of... Where it's just packed full. Like, it's just hilarity. And, you know, but not to the point of, like, it's not like a stupid funny, like, it's, you know, like a lot of these, like you mentioned sometimes, like, spoof movies and stuff like that. Like, a lot of these kind of real, like, bottom of the barrel kind of spoof movies where it's all just about, like, jokes. Yeah. But they're just, like, real, like, just lowbrow, like, bottom of the barrel jokes.
Or they're that, like, outrageous like, level of constant joke where, like, this is so dumb. Yeah. We know it's, like, not trying to be funny, but because it's so dumb, it's sort of, like, just... Yeah. The dumbness of it makes it amusing, and... Yeah, but this is also... Mike Judge. Yeah. Who...
So it's about something. Yeah. It's making a comment about something. Yeah. It's like socially relevant.
It's almost satire. Like
I mean it is satire. It doesn't really go heavy on that satire. It's more the satire is more just kind of like a basic like a foundation to like build upon. More like a foundation to sort of build upon. Yeah. I mean it's not as heavy satire as like say something like you know, Idiocracy, which he did later, which was not as successful because I think it maybe went a little too far. It was a little too real. Yeah. People were kind of a little bit scared by like, oh man, now we're getting a little bit too intense with the satire.
Office Space had a identifiability of it that like it was. I mean, in more ways, being that it took place like in a more realistic setting, was more real than Idiocracy, but it was something that everybody like. Well, everybody could go. Oh yeah, we know exactly what you're talking. Versus like Idiocracy was like that scary real.
That's what I mean. That's exactly what I'm saying. That's what I'm saying. It was maybe a little too intense.
It was the real of tomorrow that nobody wants to think about.
Yeah, exactly. It was maybe
except unfortunately, it's now the real of today.
It was maybe a little too intense for like people to really kind of, you know, people were kind of scared by like, oh god, like could it actually head that way? Yeah. Whereas like Office Space was more just kind of like, this is a reality that millions of people live with every day as to what their like working life is. And so it's like, it's just very relatable, you know. Even if you don't specifically work in that kind of cubicle paperwork kind of type of job,
you've all had a coworker like this. You've all had,
but it still has a lot of applicability. You know, that goes beyond just that.
Everyone's had a boss like that. You know,
everybody's had some sort of like piece of equipment at work that just will not cooperate. that you know just frustrates you so much because you know it makes your job that much harder. It's just. I mean, it's just a really funny comedy. It's one of those classic comedies. It's strong performances and you know, lots of interesting kind of twists and turns in the storyline, like not in like a thriller sort of way, but in the sense that you don't know exactly where it's going.
And I think that is one of the things that I really like elevates it above kind of like other movies in this position is
it's not it's recognizable without being totally formulaic.
That's it. It's not formulaic. I was going to say predictable, but formulaic is a better...
It doesn't feel like it's way outside the box. Like you know, it's not a Being John Malkovich where you're like, what is this about? What are they saying? Yeah, it's like very straightforward, but it's not totally predictable because it's you don't really know exactly like where are they going with this? How is this going to end? You know, so
I think that's a. You know, for the style of movie, that's something like Mike Judge is really good at doing.
Oh yeah, he's great. You know, obviously he's awesome.
But I think it was the first real time I was exposed to Stephen Root as an actor.
Yeah,
and I mean,
this is probably for most people.
This wasn't like a super typical role, like he was almost kind of unidentifiable in some ways, but it was a very iconic role, and then and then when I saw Stephen Root later and other stuff, I'm like, oh yeah, like he's real good, like that guy really can do the job.
I won't even go into it. I mean, most people must know probably some of the things he's done, if you know, if not, look him up, and he's really good.
But
cool.
But so two comedies there in my number 5.
Good.
So I guess that brings us to your number 4.
Yeah.
Which is Office Space.
Yeah. So we can do your 4.
My 4. My 4 is by a director that started out strong and then cashed in a little too hard on a gimmick, movie after movie after movie. And it's The Sixth Sense.
Okay.
This was M. Night Shyamalan's like first big, hey, and I don't think I have to dance around spoilers for this movie, but it had a gimmick in it that it was kind of the thing like, not that it hadn't been done before, like those kind of twists in a film.
No.
But the nature of how it had been done, especially in such a very it was such a like everybody saw The Sixth Sense kind of thing.
Yeah.
Really,
and it wasn't that commonplace at that time.
No, it was
like it was certainly been done before, but it wasn't that common.
No, that's what I mean. Like, it was a little more.
Plus, a lot of times, like I think a lot of times earlier, like twist endings were more like they were more the kinds of things that sort of came out of nowhere.
Yeah.
And they were a twist ending because it was something where suddenly information is revealed to you, but it's like that applies to Sixth Sense as well. But in Sixth Sense,
were much more like a Deus Ex Machina situation. Than
I'm thinking
we're
things
slowly
like
going to feed you the information.
Yeah, things like the end.
You just don't know that we're feeding you the information.
Right. Yeah. Like it was more like the ending of Sixth Sense is more like the reveal of the killer in a mystery story.
Yeah.
In the sense that there's clues, but just
you were never going to be able to put it together on your own
unless you put all the clues together and sort of had a bit of a brainwave and went, hey, wait a minute, you might not figure it out, but there were clues there, and it was sort of hiding in plain sight. Whereas say something like a twist ending, like say the ending of like Planet of the Apes, where like, well, you could surmise that, like, I wonder if this is Earth. I mean, it's obvious in retrospect, but like having that image of that Statue of Liberty image at the end, was like, but you couldn't see that coming. No. You could see
there was no premeditation to that as far as the film watcher.
You could see the twist in terms of the fact
sense,
that it's Earth. You could see that twist coming because it made sense, but the twist of that image, obviously you couldn't see coming because there was nothing to set that up. Whereas like something like the way the Sense ends, it's like it was all kind of set up. And then it's only when you get to the end that you go, wait, and then you can go back.
All this stuff.
And then if you go back and watch it again,
they literally do that right in the film too. He has like a flashback as Bruce Willis realizes
which is I think it's a good way to do it, especially if it's presented well. I mean, I thought The Sixth Sense was pretty good. I mean, like everyone else, that was my first sort of like I'm Night Shyamalan guy. Well, that's sort of interesting. For me, I think I don't know. I found it. I don't want to say boring, but like I wasn't really that riveted by that film. I thought that I think for me the only really great M. Night Shyamalan movie still is Unbreakable.
Just watched that about a week ago.
Which comes later.
I was browsing through Netflix and I was like, Unbreakable.
But
I got 2 hours.
Yeah.
Watched Unbreakable.
Although I haven't seen Split.
No, I haven't seen Split.
Which apparently is great. Yeah. So that may be a return to form.
The interesting thing about Unbreakable too, though, I think, and probably why it also is like good compared to some of his other stuff, is doesn't really have that twist. Doesn't try to cash in on.
Well, it does, but
not in the same way that like the what's the one with the water fearing aliens, or the one with the where they live in the village, like not in the same way as The Village. Although The Village, I think, probably falls a little more into like that old style twist where they don't give you enough clues to.
No, it's just a twist for the sake of having a twist.
A twist, exactly, and that's so many of his films. And Unbreakable, the twist is not that. The twist is, and you can...
It's because Unbreakable was the next one after Sixth Sense.
Sixth Sense, yeah.
He hadn't quite lost the plot yet.
Yeah.
He was still kind of on the track. Mm-hmm. You know, he hadn't
still putting himself in his films.
But he always does cameos.
Yeah.
That's standard. I have no issue with him doing cameos. I have an issue with him giving himself major supporting roles.
What movie is that? That's
Lady in the Water.
Yeah, which that's the only one of his films I haven't seen.
It has some good elements, but the downfall is that he gives himself not only a major supporting role, which he can't pull off acting wise, but also he essentially casts himself as like a writer whose writing is so good it's gonna save the world. That's essentially what it is. Which I'm like, wow, ego much?
Yeah, wow.
Really? Like, why not just let the work speak for itself?
You could interpret that as a satirical, like, writers who believe that.
Yeah, but it worked. No. But it worked.
But how it actually comes out on film is a different story.
Because it's himself doing it.
Yeah, exactly.
If he had written that character
for somebody else to do,
got a really good actor in to do that part, it wouldn't have come off so bad. Yeah. The fact that he felt he had to do it himself is what makes it terrible.
At least he wasn't playing. At least the character's name wasn't also like he wasn't literally playing himself. Like
he may as well have been.
Yeah, but
anyways, that's off topic.
Yeah. But yeah, there's
Sixth Sense. Yeah, it's decent.
I really like it. It's interesting because I think what kind of really drew me to it, or it draws me to it as a really good film that I like is it's the whole thing where he can see ghosts and stuff but it's almost like that is not really 100% like what the film's about. Like it's more about
not all what it's about.
Yeah, like it's more about this guy and his life and how he's having these troubles and this and that and the other thing, and he gets drawn into this weird thing and you're like, oh, like, well, this is like it's such a weird thing in such a kind of an ordinary life problem movie. You're like, well, I mean, obviously the trailers and stuff kind of always, you knew that something odd was up. It wasn't like this came out of left field, and then of course how it.
Well, the I see dead people
the I see dead
catchphrase became
super duper.
Such a known catchphrase.
Yeah.
I should watch it again. It's been
it's been a
real long time for me, and I just remember liking it, but just not being blown away by it because I just was like, eh.
Yeah.
I don't know. It seemed kind of slow, kind of just.
It is a bit slow. It's not. And I think maybe part of that. I mean, I guess granted it was his first big.
I mean, I still would say it's definitely of what I'm aware of. It's definitely the best one after Unbreakable. Like I still think Unbreakable is the best one, but like I think definitely Sixth Sense is easily the best one after that. Yeah. But that's not saying much with some of the crap that he's turned out.
Yeah, exactly.
So
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely like you want to
again with the with the qualifying thing that I have not seen Split yet, which I've heard good things about. So
but no, I've also heard good things about it. So you never know. So my number 4 is The Sixth Sense.
Cool.
So your number 3.
My 3 is what I think personally is the best overall Kevin Smith film, Dogma. I think for Dogma, he found the right balance between like the sort of indie roots and kind of bigger budget, more high concept, ambitious kind of film thing. Like Mallrats, as much as we both enjoy it and it's really funny and it's good comedy and everything, you can definitely see where the discomfort with kind of working in that world of like multi-million-dollar studio pictures kind of translated into like a bit of offness, and he kind of went back to more the indie thing after that, and that seemed to work better for him. But of course, Dogma conceptually required a certain kind of budget and a certain kind of, because it's like a real high concept thing that was going to have like a lot of effects and things like going on.
I mean, because he'd already done Chasing Amy, which was
that's what I mean. Like going back to he kind of went back to the sort of indie kind of style, more character focused, more talky.
Well, the aspirations for Dogma were a little higher,
but
because
I feel
of
like
what
Dogma
he wanted to do with it.
Yeah, but I feel like Dogma struck the right balance where, you know, he was able to. Maybe it was just because he'd grown as a filmmaker in the interim, but like he seemed to handle the bigger budget better.
Yeah.
And just be more confident and more kind of like he seemed to really know like what he wanted to do. Maybe the studio was just more willing to let him do his thing, you know, because I know like for Mallrats there was a lot of pressure on him to kind of do certain things to make it more mainstream. Yeah.
I mean, to be fair, I don't like it. Despite I know Mallrats like didn't actually perform well, but I think Mallrats is like regarded well as like a really good comedy. It
depends on who you talk to.
I guess that's true.
It's still pretty mixed, but I think there not too many people would consider it one of his better ones. Let's put it that way.
I guess part of it is possibly like you could have done Mallrats as an indie film, and it would have turned out more or less exactly the same. Like I mean, dialogue.
Probably the thing in Mallrats that required some degree of sort of budget and stuff like that, the most of anything is probably just getting access to filming in a mall. Yeah. Right? Like, because you can't really fake that, you know? No. It's not like in Clerks where it's just like
a convenience.
You're shooting in a convenience store, so you literally just like, it's, you know, whatever, you know, it's midnight or whenever the store closes, and then you just shoot all night in the store.
Exactly. Yeah.
You can basically do it because it's just a convenience store.
I mean, you can shoot in a mall when they're closed.
Right, which is how...
The mall is still going to charge you money.
Which is how the original Dawn of the Dead was done.
Yeah, right.
They shot in an actual mall all night, and then by the morning, they were all cleaned up, and they were out, and then the mall opens.
Swept up the zombie bits, and...
Yeah. So, I mean, that's the way they did that.
Because that's how you clean up zombies. You sweep them up.
Right. That's how they did that, but I'm just saying, like, if they had like, the ultra-low budget kind of indie sort of thing for Mallrats, they may not have been able to do that. Yeah. So they kind of needed a bit of budget for that purpose, but, you know, but not $6 million.
No.
You know, so... Yeah, so for Dogma, I just feel like it was a really good balance between having a little more ambition and you know, having that studio money and stuff like that, but still keeping a lot of the indie feel, and kind of him doing what he was able to do. And obviously, it was like he was clearly passionate about that story and wanting to do it, so he did a good job. I thought it also had a nice balance of the sort of very kind of silly comedic aspects and the more dramatic aspects.
I think that was definitely something like he honed that in Chasing Amy.
He did, but Chasing Amy by its nature it more serious. It leaned more to the drama side, but
showing like after like how like my opinion how funny he made Mallrats, and then how kind of serious he made Chasing Amy,
and then sort of being able to in the middle. Yeah, exactly. That's what I'm saying. I just feel like Dogma it met well in the middle. You know. I think the cast is really cool. Like,
I have not seen Dogma in so long.
The story is just good. Like, I just feel like it's executed well. Like, it's just a good story, and it's done well, and everything looks good. And
when did the first of the Silent Bob movies come out? Jay and Silent Bob films come out. That was like 2000.
I'm not sure what you mean. Jay and Silent Bob were in all of the views.
No. They had the standalone film.
Jay and Silent Bob Strike Back.
Yeah.
Well, there's only one.
Oh, I thought there was two.
No.
Oh man, I'm confused with something else. Well, when did Jay and Silent Bob Strike back?
I don't know, like 2000 something.
2000, yeah, because that was the last time. Because I rewatched
2004.
all of them.
Yeah.
Before going to see that, and so that was probably the last time I saw Dogma. So, but yeah, no. It's
but yeah, anyways, I really like Dogma, and it's still really funny. Like, it has those other elements and stuff and those high concept things, but it's still really funny. There's like some crazy outtakes from it that I just always make me really laugh.
Yeah, no, it's real good. I need to see it again.
Yeah, it's great.
Yeah.
So, and I thought just it had the right, like, another sort of balance thing is it had the right balance with Jay and Silent Bob. Like, I felt like it was definitely their biggest role yet.
Yeah.
But it wasn't to the point of like the next movie that was kind of completely centered around them, which I think didn't work as well. They work better.
They're side character.
They work better as side characters, you know. Same as, you know, Captain Jack Sparrow and, you know, things like that. It always works better when they're kind of just the funny, sort of entertaining side character, you know.
It's tough for those kind of characters to sometimes support a whole, like, movie on their own.
Well, I think just don't do it.
Basically,
it's just don't do it. I mean, I liked the Jay and Silent Bob movie, but it was never going to be as good because they're not characters that are meant to be leading characters. So I thought that they did a good job in this one with them being there being more of them, but like not too much, you know. So yeah, it's just good. Dogma.
No, that's a good pick. Yeah, nice. I was on my also rens.
Well, like you say, you haven't seen it in a long time. You're not as familiar.
I've
watched it.
It almost immediately jumped, and I was like, I know I really like it. I was like, but I couldn't. Like, I could really only draw together like a couple of scenes.
Because I do think it's Kevin Smith's best film overall. I have like watched it quite a few times over the years, and you know, it's hasn't been super long. So yeah,
I definitely probably. Yeah, it's definitely those movies are much more of like how do I feel at the time as to which ones I like more than the other. Like I kind of lean towards Mallrats, but I think because it's just so easily like watched. Like it's such
I understand.
You know, but Dogma probably encompassing in toto is probably definitely the best of that.
I mean, that's just my opinion. I mean, a lot of people would probably say Clerks.
I mean, I like Clerks a lot too.
That's the most kind of overall critically acclaimed kind of, you know. But to me, it's kind of like, well, that was a good starting point.
Yeah.
But
I mean,
you know,
exactly.
You know, he had to go from there to somewhere. You know, I think it's, you know, it's kind of sad if your first movie is your best, you know, and you have like a, you know, if you have a 20+ year career, making movies steadily, and your first movie is your best movie, that's kind of sad. Like, I wouldn't wish that on anyone.
No.
So, you know, I do feel like he did grow, and then, you know, maybe regressed a little after. You know, hard to say. I mean, it just depends on what you're into. But
I mean, he definitely went.
I feel like he reached a peak and then just didn't have the oomph that maybe, you know. When he was
he also started trying like a lot of much more newer things and stuff. I haven't seen any of this stuff,
but it's hard. Like when you're sort of young and sort of passionate and full of energy and wanting to just get out there and show what you can do. And then, you know, when you get older, it's kind of, you know, it gets hard because you do things sometimes for different reasons. You know, like sometimes it's just like, oh well, you know. It you know, it's a complicated thing. So you know, it is. I mean,
he definitely did a fantastic job of building a, like, I mean, more or less like the little Kevin Smith empire there for his movies and his ideas and stuff like that.
Something that I've said before, which also runs true, is that I don't know how much of like my lack of interest in some of his later work. I don't know how much of that is tied to like whether the movies themselves are not as good, or whether it's just a matter of because. Just because I like the sort of Yost universe thing, and I feel like when he kind of finished with that, I sort of maybe that just my loss of interest on that basis because it was always kind of cool seeing like, oh, how do these connect? What characters are going to cross over? You know, it was always the cool thing whenever a movie came out because there was always something, you know, and especially because you'd see the same actors. Like often playing different characters, but then because they're in the same universe, you know that they're still also this other person that just happens to look bizarrely the same, you know, and so it's just kind of, you know, interesting on that basis, which of course comes to a head in the Jay and Silent Bob one because you literally had like like actors playing different characters in the same movie because they were playing multiple people from different movies and stuff like that, you know, or in some cases themselves, you know.
Yeah, because I guess
in
Clerks 2 was I guess the last one. Yeah.
Which was like sort of the unplanned, you know.
Yeah. Is Jersey Girl technically in that?
No, it's separate.
Is it separate?
Yeah.
Okay, I couldn't. I like Jersey Girl, but I couldn't remember how if it tied in or if it was a
it's pretty good.
standalone thing.
It's pretty
because it came out like around that time, like, in between those.
Well,
ones,
it was
so,
when he was kind of starting to branch out into let's try to do some
Yeah.
other stuff now. You know.
Yeah, and I mean now he's in like a horror movie and
He's been doing a lot of those.
Yeah.
So,
which I think that's probably one of those like. I listened to podcasts that he did for quite some time, and like definitely a genre always wanted to do a movie from, but like because of things like because of his movie making past, like suddenly branching into that was more difficult, and it took some time. It's,
so there we go.
Yeah, no, Dogma, awesome.
Yeah,
cool. All right, so
your three.
My number three. My number three. Not a very well rated movie. Actually, kind of bombed in the box office.
What was your 5 again?
It was Galaxy Quest and Office Space.
What was your 4? Oh, Sixth Sense.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, I really need to pay attention.
Yeah. Oh, well, it's because then we did your 4.
I got confused. I got confused.
Yeah,
all right. So your 3 was very low rated.
Yeah, not super low rated, just well rated, and actually semi bombed in the box office. Also has John Malkovich in it, and it's The Messenger.
Oh, the Joan of Arc one?
The story of Joan of Arc. Yeah. No, not the one that came out like last year. No, the one that came out.
Well, obviously.
Yeah. I'm sneaking in a current film.
No, there's been a lot of movies called The Messenger. That's why it's a stupid title.
Yeah, it's The Messenger, the story of Joan of Arc.
It's very
is the whole
generic
title of the film.
Yeah, but it's still a stupid title.
I mean, at the time, like for the movie, it had like it's like that The Messenger, like that's a very powerful kind of like.
Yeah, I get it. It's still stupid.
But yeah, it's still kind of like
it's not a good title.
We've got a lot of movies called that already. IMDb overfloweth with movies called The Messenger, I'm sure. Yeah. With Mila Jovovich and
well, it was Luc Besson. It was
Luc Besson.
It was the next film after Fifth Element,
which was last year's
97.
Or 97, year before. Sorry. Yeah. Last year. Sorry. I just re-listened to episode 97 that just went up, so that was the last episode in my head.
Yeah, no worries.
So he came back and he did The Messenger, which I
think this was the point at which they were married.
Yes, yeah.
Because I think it was after doing Fifth Element. Didn't last super long, but
a very fanciful version of the Joan of Arc story, more or less, like. Plays very loose and fast with historical events.
It doesn't actually.
Oh no!
No, if you look it up, it's actually one of the most accurate.
I just from what I read, the characters and stuff were very not.
Yeah, but
a little bit of not a fantasy element, but a little of a more heroic element. Maybe that's the word I'm looking for. Than like
I suppose, but I mean, most movies would have that.
But yeah. Justin Hoffman does an amazing job of playing like the conscience.
Yeah.
Which is neat because you're not initially at the beginning when you first meet, you're not initially sure like what he is until later. And then it's got like that.
Some really impressive like medieval like action.
Like that's the part that I really like about this film because I'm a big fan of like medieval like action stuff, but it usually falls in the realm of like these are like low budget movies, in which case, or it's like really like real historical films, in which case like you don't get like a ton of like awesome sword fighting and sieges and stuff like that. So getting a movie that was actually had budget, actually visually really well done,
check out.
Had that like she assembles that like. For I think at the time we called it like she basically assembles like a D&D party to help her out, and it's like every guy has his role and they're very clearly like these heroes that are going to help her, or die trying. But I mean, like everybody dies in this movie too, which is pretty brutal.
Yep. Well, that's one of those jokes. Right?
Well, it's a super tragedy.
In test screenings, people would write on like their test screening cards. People would write things like, does she have to die at the end? And it's like, well,
yes. Yep.
kind of hard to get around that.
Yeah. Does she have to call it there? Oh my god.
Kind of hard to get around that.
So I mean, it's the story.
Well, I mean,
Joan of Arc.
I just feel
more
like
or less she was like 19 years old.
In retrospect, it probably wasn't the greatest movie, but obviously at the time I really liked it.
Well, that's the thing. Like,
this is still in my very obsessed with Mila period and whatnot. It
is.
I thought
I saw it.
Her performance was really good. I thought.
Yeah, well, I've seen it. I saw it a number of years ago.
It's really underrated.
A couple of years ago, and it is. A lot of the writing and stuff is really like hyper dramatic to like the point of like it's a little silly,
that doesn't surprise me.
It kind of, despite it having like some good action and stuff, it really does drag in parts, and you're just like, I kind of get what I know. Like, we all got what you're going for here. Now you're just dragging.
Probably because they're trying to make it like an epic.
Well, and I think that's if he had leaned a little more into like the things that made like Fifth Element great and things like that.
Well, I don't know if like the humor and the light tone would have worked for this.
Well, the thing is
from the Fifth Element,
like they're kind of inadvertently, there is humor in this. Well, not, I guess it's not inadvertent, like, and that's what made, like, being that, like, some of the characters are so, like, seriously traumatic, like, to an absurd level, and then you have, like, some of her companions are, like, jovial, like, almost like Robin Hood's, merry band kind of characters, and so there's a little bit of a tonal issue, I think, like, over the whole scope of the movie.
Could be, yeah. I haven't seen it for a while.
Individually, like the acting is well done and the characters are likable. Yeah, Mila does an amazing job of being she's got like this because of like everything she's going through. She's like shell shocked by her like life events kind of, and she does a really good job of like portraying that.
Yeah.
It's actually something she does in a number of movies. It's something she's actually really good at. This thing like beginning of Fifth Element there where she does that. She does panic very well. She's really good at doing like believable panic. But yeah, no, she's great.
There's a special skill for you.
Yeah, we need you to be please. But again, it's got quite a big cast and stuff. But yeah, I really like it just because it's that. I first of all, I like the story that it tells, and the big epicness of the fights and the action, and then things like the whole like her talking with Dustin Hoffman as her conscience, and is it really hearing angels or is it hearing devils and all that? It was a neat, or she's just crazy. Yeah,
that aspect.
And also, I like how they never answer that. No. They never let you.
Well, how could you?
And that's the thing. It's
if you answer it, then you move into the realm of fantasy.
Which is good. Like they keep it like. They don't basically make up stuff for an ending, like, because we already know how it ends. So they didn't need to do it, which was good. But yeah, so that's my number 3. My number 3, The Messenger. All right. So now we're on to our 1 and 2 here. Mm-hmm. I'm assuming we probably have the same movie for both of these. I'm just wondering the order we did. Unless you really came out of nowhere with something different. But it's your number 2.
Okay. Well, my 2 is a movie that it's somewhat questionable as to how well it may have aged. It seemed like it was going to be very sort of influential and stuff at the time, and then that kind of didn't last that long, and now it may seem
like it was going to be a Renaissance film.
Yeah, now it may seem a little passé, but I think that again, it's a bit like while it's not as good as, say, something like Jurassic Park, it's not even close. I mean,
come on now, let's be serious.
Few things are, but and Jurassic Park has completely held up. But there's a similarity in that this is a movie that kind of was a game changer at the time, or kind of blew minds, and it's The Matrix.
Also, my number 2.
Okay. Yeah. So, it's one of those things where it's hard now for someone today who wasn't kind of a certain age and there at the time to really understand why it's so significant. Because now it looks a bit dated. It's kind of like it might seem a little bit cheesy in some ways, like oh, they're all running around in like, you know,
trench coats
and like black, you know, leather and shades and trying to be all cool and stuff. And I can see why people, you know, where people would just be like, oh, it seems kind of cheesy, blah blah blah. But I mean, but you have to remember, like, if you're there at the time, it was a totally new thing, and it was, you know, nobody had seen what
it was presenting.
You know, nobody had really seen anything quite like it in terms of the style and the effects and stuff like that. You know, like the bullet time and everything was such a
was just
it
was the bullet time in this was as to the T-1000 in Terminator 2.
Yeah,
like it was this revolutionary new
like
thing.
It may seem dated now, but I mean, and it only really seems dated because of the fact that it was only really a thing for such a short time. It was like when The Matrix came out, everyone copied it, and everybody did bullet time for like you know, a couple of years, and then it just kind of stopped. Like no one really did it after, possibly because it was too identified as the signature thing. Because even like the Matrix sequels didn't do it very much.
No.
They kind of moved on to like using a lot of CG instead.
Yeah.
That was kind of their new thing.
That was.
But I mean, I think in the first movie, they were smart to be like, well, you know, CG still doesn't quite hold up super well. You know, it's still something you want to, like in the 90s, there was movies like Jurassic Park that, I mean, this was the innovator in that way, but like Jurassic Park, where they knew that like CG is not really going to hold up super, super well if you overuse it.
Yeah.
So we're just going to use it very carefully for the things we need it for, and then use other techniques for you know, for everything else. And that's why Jurassic Park holds up so well. Yeah. You know, and I think that in the 90s there was a lot of movies where they went full on. They really embraced the CG thing, and they look super dated now because it's just that like 90s CG that you're just like, whoa, that's rough.
And when we say super dated now, like 5 years after they came out, they look dated.
That's what I mean.
That
like
technology just.
But like the first Matrix actually has very little CG because you know, I mean, even you know, bullet time itself is not a CG effect. No. It's done using cameras. Basically, there's like a rig that goes around the set, and they're basically still cameras. It's essentially like live action stop motion.
Yeah,
basically.
Exactly. Yeah,
it's there's a rig of a whole bunch of cameras, like on big rigs, like on
it's like these huge curved
it can be up,
basically.
Like on the Matrix, sometimes it was over 100 cameras.
Yeah, it's crazy,
right? But they're still cameras.
It's very impressive looking.
So they basically fire off, go all around, and that allows you to basically manipulate the flow of time essentially along that path. Yeah. So they could basically stop time and turn it in three-dimensionally. Yeah. You know, can you imagine bullet time in 3D? Man, that's something they could probably do now.
Oh, yeah.
That would look amazing.
Yeah. I'm going to assume, like, the bullets were probably CG'd.
Oh, yeah. Well, some stuff. A lot of times the stuff that they use...
just because, like, the relative speed of a bullet...
Yeah, but a lot of times objects...
Also, you can't fire real bullets.
Yeah.
At actors, so...
But a lot of times what they would do, actually, a lot of times for objects... is they would actually literally just like suspend the object, so they just have it on wires or something, and then it would just be suspended in the scene, you know, and then they can move it that way, right? Since
I mean, they were literally almost doing that with actors in some of the scenes anyway.
Yeah, well,
like a lot of the where she does the jumps in the air and then kicks out.
Yeah,
and stuff
like that's all wire work.
Yeah.
Or
a lot of good wire work.
Or there's well, that was all influenced by like kung fu movies, right? Yeah. But like there's the bit in the subway. There's that subway scene.
Oh, right.
Where Agent Smith and Neo are like jump at each other. And they're like in the air and it's going around. The bullet time scene is going around them. And they're like shooting at each other and sort of grappling in the air at the same time. Yeah. And they're both like kind of stretched out like a Superman pose. Yeah. And it's like all that kind of stuff. That's all wire work, right? Yeah. So they basically just have them suspended in the wires and then they're just running because of the way around them.
They're like kind of freeze timing it, like it doesn't, you know.
So I imagine
in some of the places it definitely has a like, in some of the places there's a actually that scene in particular there's a few spots in that scene right near the end, like because they grapple and then when they hit the ground, just before they hit the ground, there's a bit of, for like the amount they jump and that they're grappling, their bodies as a whole there's not enough kinetic motion going on with their bodies.
But the whole point is that physics
it doesn't,
are not really, they don't have to be completely realistic because in the Matrix
the VR world anyway. So which is one of those great things. Like you're like, it may not look right, but also we're doing an impossible thing in an impossible space, so it doesn't matter.
The other thing with the Matrix that a lot of people would
the rule of cool applies.
Exactly.
I mean, and that's. In
and
a
that's
way,
what the
Matrix top to bottom is
the Matrix is all about the rule of cool. It definitely has that cyberpunk,
which is of course why, like for people who don't, the rule of cool will never live up for people that weren't there at the time.
Well, it's very time dependent because it's what's cool at the time.
Exactly.
But there's definitely that cyberpunk influence with the style over substance. There's not a lot of substance to the Matrix, but it's a lot of style. Yeah. The other thing I think that applies that would be confusing for people now that only sort of applies if you were there at the time is nobody knew what it was about before seeing it.
Exactly.
You didn't have every little thing spoiled by the time you went to see the movie.
The trailer is it's amazing in some ways that it became as big as it did so quickly.
Yeah.
Because the trailer. We watched. I just actually watched this maybe less than a month ago or so. Yeah. And I was curious. I was like, I wonder what the trailer for this was. The trailer kind of more or less is nonsense.
Yeah.
And it's just like, I mean, because we were of the right age
when
we went and saw it,
intrigued, but
it's definitely the kind of what a gamble.
Yeah.
Like that trailer could easily have hit the mass public and everybody gone, that looks dumb, and nobody but maybe young people our age went and saw it.
It worked because people wanted to know what it was.
Yeah.
Because nobody knew.
It hit just the right note. Well, what is the Matrix?
Yeah, but nobody knew what the hell.
It has to be experienced.
Nobody knew what the hell it was about, so everybody had to go see it in order to find out what it was about. Mm-hmm. And then once you've done that, it's too late. You've already seen it.
Yeah.
They've got your.
They got your money.
They got your money, right? So.
But at the same time, everybody's like, "Oh, you have to see this."
Oh yeah, people liked it.
It's one of those films where everybody who has seen it immediately becomes a voice piece.
Well, because if it wasn't good, then it wouldn't have worked at all, right? But people saw it and they liked it.
Yeah.
But that initial if you saw it early on, we didn't know what it was about. We literally, there was no, we didn't even know the actual premise. Yeah. Imagine going and watching that movie and not even knowing. We knew that maybe there was some sort of sci-fi element because, you heard that much, and I think maybe
they show a little bit of
some of the trailers might have shown a little bit of, the Sentinels and stuff, so you knew, a flash of that, so you knew there was some sort of sci-fi element.
There was computer stuff in the trailer.
But the thing of the Matrix being a virtual world and blah blah blah, and then the real world and the whole sort of post-apocalyptic thing, all that was nobody knew before seeing the movie. Yeah. So you have to imagine going into the Matrix not knowing what it's about, not even knowing that it's going to be revealed that it's all a virtual world. They kept that
so under wraps so well.
Because you didn't know. Even if you'd seen scenes of the fighting and stuff like that, you might have just thought maybe they're they're just that it's that heroic in
Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon,
in kung fu movies when they have to do all the wire work and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And it's not meant that they're superheroes necessarily. It's just that in kung fu movies, that's how people fight. Yeah. Or you could think maybe they do have superpowers or something. Maybe it's some kind of weird superhero movie.
But
there was no way to know, right? Yeah. Until you actually saw the movie, and that was awesome. Well, and you can't do that anymore. You can deliberately try
what is the Matrix ad campaign was the crux of that mystery that.
Mm-hmm. But you can deliberately try and avoid spoilers now, and you can be oh, there's a movie. I'm gonna not look at anything about it and try to. But it's really hard to not know anything about what a movie's about before going to it.
You go to a movie, you will just end up going to one movie. You will end up seeing trailers for another movie.
Yeah, and trailers often are a little bit too revealing nowadays. Yeah. Not always, but often.
I feel like it sort of was a joke because it happened every once in a while, like years ago. But I feel more and more now, and I mean now as in the last like probably decade now, sadly enough, I can go. I have that thing in my head where I see a trailer and I go, oh, thank you. I don't need to see the movie now because I can fill in the gaps on my own. You know?
Or even like that thing where you see trailers and then you'll be like, yeah, I can tell that those are like shots from like the finale of the movie. That sucks. Don't do that, you know?
Yeah. But yeah, no, The Matrix is...
Yeah, I mean, it was, and I mean, both of us are, you know, we both like Keanu Reeves.
Yes.
You know, a lot more than probably a lot of people do.
I was already a fan of Keanu Reeves by the time The Matrix had come out. So,
you know, it was a bit of an introduction to like people like Hugo Weaving. Like he really kind of busted out big time in that, where everyone was like, "Who is this guy? Wow, he's he's someone to look out for." You know, and of course now, I mean, he's so familiar, but. Yeah. But back then, it was like a brand new thing. Carrie-Anne Moss too.
Exactly.
It was like, who is she? You know, like it was a lot of, you know, and there was, I mean, there's like people like Lawrence Fishburne that were well familiar too. So it was a nice mix of like new faces, you know, and people that we're familiar with and things like that at the time. So, yeah, it was good.
And I think even like it, while it is, I mean, an action movie, with, I guess, more or less sci-fi elements to it. It stretches itself a little bit with like some of the questions it asks about.
Absolutely.
Like what you don't expect out of your sci-fi action movie is like characters questioning the nature of their reality in a way that like even knowing that the Matrix isn't the real world, fine with it. I'd rather live there than the alternative, rather than being quote unquote free.
Well,
which I feel is
the question of that, and just sort of like just questioning that as a thing, like just sort of saying like, is it always better to just be free, but like live in like a a crappy real world, or I mean, do you want the ignorance is bliss type of thing where you can live out your life, in the Matrix and
this is. And I mean, it's kind of unfortunate that, like this is the kind of film that pushes, like, questions such as, like, what does being free even mean?
Yeah.
When, like, nobody's really taking those questions seriously from a movie like The Matrix, when it's like...
But it does enhance it, though.
That's the thing.
It gives it an extra...
Putting things like that in the movie give it a little more depth.
That's what I mean, yeah. That's why we're talking about it now.
Yeah, exactly.
Instead of any other movie that just had some action.
Yeah, exactly. Like
interesting.
It is.
That's why, like, as dated as certain elements of it might be, it's still worth kind of remembering and talking about it because it has something extra to it.
Yeah. No, it is a really great film. I think that's
cool
sort
beans.
of.
Cool
beans. I think most people I think like The Matrix.
Yeah, I just think that, like I said at the beginning, I just feel like maybe
was that the big blockbuster for the year?
There was a few, like you said at the beginning, there was a few. They kind of just rolled on.
Yeah. But because when we get into the also rans,
there was a few. Anyways,
so that was both of our number twos.
Yeah.
The Matrix.
Not terribly shocking.
No. I'm just... The Matrix is actually number 4.
Yeah, well, like we said, there's a lot of really big...
Very closely beat out by Toy Story.
Yeah.
Toy Story 2.
Yeah.
The Sixth Sense.
Yeah.
Beat it out by a good chunk.
Wow. So I didn't realize The Sixth Sense was that big of a phenomenon. I knew it was successful.
$672 million.
Wow.
Versus 463 for Matrix.
Yeah, I knew it was successful, but
wow, Matrix got sandwiched in between 2 Disney films, Toy Story 2 and Tarzan. Just, but
not too surprising.
See, the problem is The Phantom Menace came out that year. Yeah, and that made like $1 billion. So, oops.
Whatever.
Yeah,
it's fine.
Yeah, but that's yeah. So my number 2 is Matrix. So now your number 1.
My number 1. My number 1 is speaking of the early days of getting DVDs, like I was talking about earlier.
Yeah.
This is one of this movie what is my number one, was one of the first DVDs that I deliberately bought for myself. And it was because I did see it in theater and I loved it. And it has, to this day, is one of the best DVD releases for like extras.
Amazing DVD
has like
release,
multiple commentaries. It has a ton of extras and stuff like that, which was completely not a thing at the time. Like extra features and commentaries and stuff like that had existed on like Laserdisc and stuff. But when DVD first started, like a lot of times they were just those bare bones releases that were like the cheapest possible, nothing like release that you can imagine, and that's still what a lot of those early DVDs are like. But this movie,
120 minutes of film and a title screen stamped on
yeah,
a disc.
but this movie had a ton of interesting extras, lots of like behind the scenes things, lots of and like I say, multiple commentaries, which is still a rarity. You know, most movies, even if you do get a commentary, you get like one maybe with the director or something.
Is that a thing that is like ebbed and flowed over like the years, like the popularity of the commentary? Since
no,
the DVD,
it seems pretty steady.
It's pretty steady. Like it's sort of like
most movies have at least like a director commentary now.
Yeah.
But not always, but most.
As someone who doesn't usually listen to those, I'm not always aware.
There are some directors that just don't like doing them. So like there are like you won't find like Spielberg films with commentaries because he doesn't do them. Things like that.
It's actually too bad because like.
It might be
that would be
interesting. Yeah, some of his movies might have like
typical.
Some of his movies might have commentaries from like other people involved, you know, like the editor or I don't know something. But I don't know. I'm just Anyways, it is Fight Club.
Fight Club, my number one as well,
which is one of my favorite movies of all time.
Absolutely, yeah.
It completely blew my mind when I saw it. You know, in some ways, even more than Matrix. In a way, like. I like The Matrix.
In different ways.
Yeah, in different ways. Yeah. But in terms of the fact of, like, The Matrix was more like, I don't know what this movie's about. Oh, wow, that's, like, really cool. That's some good action and some cool ideas. It was neat that I didn't know what it was about before I saw it.
Yeah.
But Fight Club was in the way of, like, you know, mind-expanding kind of way. You know, it was the way that it was for...
I mean, in some ways, like, knowing, like... You knew the genre more or less of the Matrix going into it. Yeah. Fight Club kind of actually more of a mystery.
Yeah.
And even if you thought you knew what it was about, you were going to be wrong.
Yeah.
Like nobody went into this and guessed right. You know.
No.
Well, okay.
Unless you read the book.
Yeah, but I didn't know there was a book. At the time.
I didn't at the time either. No.
Yeah.
But Fight Club is kind of another one of those sort of entries in kind of a little bit of that. It's more focused and controlled, but you know that sort of like that whole thing I talked about with like Natural Born Killers in '94, that filmmaking Unbound concept. Yeah. It kind of fits a little bit into that. It's not the same, but it's very different. But it fits a bit into that in that it's just kind of like all these crazy like techniques thrown in there. You know, whether it be sort of odd like you know. Putting like labeling things on screen, like there's that scene where he's talking about his apartment and all the like you know like IKEA furniture and like all of it, and it's showing it like it's a catalog, but it's in live action.
Yeah,
you know, there's a lot.
I mean, like it deliberately in like that particular scene, deliberately used to prove the point of like what he was talking about.
There's a lot of interesting things done. Like speaking of CG, there's a lot of interesting things done with CG, like using it in very unusual ways. And you know, there's a lot of there is a thing similar. There is a type of shot that's used a couple of times in Fight Club that is kind of similar in a way to what they did with the bullet time in actually there is a bullet time shot in Fight Club. The sex scene is bullet time.
Yeah.
But there's
Take that, Matrix.
Yeah. But there's an interesting thing they do but a bit akin but different where different shots were merged together and sort of morphed together with using computers so that it looked all continuous, but there were like physically impossible shots.
Yeah.
Specifically, the big one is there's a scene where it goes like down through a building.
Oh yes, yeah,
and out through like the garage and like across, and then like I think it goes to another building.
Yeah.
Because it's showing where the explosives are planted in the buildings at the end there, and it's like this shot that like travels across, and it looks like it's all one shot, and it's just a camera zooming through, which is physically impossible. Yeah.
But at that time, anyway,
and I mean nowadays you'd probably do that with just all CG. The entire shot would probably be constructed with CG. Yeah.
I mean, with drone cameras and stuff like that, it might be a little easier,
but not that way. Not in that artificial, linear way.
The difficulty of shooting that, for real,
yeah.
is like there would be no reason. That's stupid. You would never do that.
But taking advantage of the what's possible digitally, and then basically shooting it all as separate pieces, but making sure that it all lines up so that you can make it a continuous shot and it looks good. Another thing that he this is David Fincher. We should probably mention David Fincher's come up a couple of times on these lists already. He made a lot of great films. Then this is kind of like his masterpiece, I guess. It's like the culmination of like everything he'd done was building up to this kind of thing, and because after this he kind of started mostly doing more for lack of a better term, sort of conventional. Like he's done a lot of sort of dramas and like very respected things, like like the Zodiac one, right? Stuff like that, where like people really like are like, oh, that's a great film for like that type of,
but more conventional,
but more sort of like conventional kind of like drama type of. It was mostly in the 90s that he was making the real crazy, like real what I think of as like the Fincher-esque kind of stuff. Anyways, another interesting like digital technique was the use of digitally creating where the like flaws and jumps like in the film, like where you had this
artifacts,
the scene where
film artifacts and stuff
like the scene where it looked like the film was breaking off the projector and stuff like that. Which was would have been extremely difficult to do that. I mean, you wouldn't really have been able to
there's
a
no
way to really do that for real. You'd have to do
yeah.
some kind of weird like effect trickery.
Yeah.
So doing that like digitally was just a really good way. He was really good at sort of taking advantage of the new what was newly possible with these like digital effects and stuff, and making them look really good. Splicing in like single frames of like weird random stuff.
Which is always like how, because they talk about it in the film.
Yeah.
And you realize it's actually been happening
throughout
the whole film.
They've already done it. Yeah. And then there's just like the story, obviously, the acting.
Super brilliant.
It's definitely one of those ones where
I guess it's kind of more or less. I know Edward Norton from originally.
Like not sure
if I've seen.
And it's a really great one for rewatching.
Yeah,
because when you go back knowing the ending, and then you can sort of see, and it's not so much about like specific clues. It's not so much like Sixth Sense, where it's specific sort of clue, like little clues. It's more just about the experience of like
armed with the knowledge of how it ends.
It's how the behavior of the characters. It's the new light. Yeah. It's the new light.
It's a bit outrageous to say if you watch it again, it's almost like watching a different movie, but it sort of is. Yeah. The experience of watching it is so different. Yeah.
Because the way the characters behave.
Yeah.
When you see it the first time, you don't know the truth.
Yeah.
And you just think like, oh, okay, that's okay, whatever. And then like when you know, and then you go back and watch it, you're like, that is really messed up.
Yeah.
Knowing what was actually going on there, like, wow, that is way more messed up than it seemed the first time around, which is awesome.
Again, if I'd been familiar with the author of the book, I would have been like, oh, well, par for the course. Yeah. That guy writes a lot of messed up stuff. But the
way they constructed it so that you only get how messed up it is after you already know the truth, and then you watch it again.
It's the way they both directly show you what's going on, but that is also kind of a disguise as to like what's going on. Is really brilliant.
Yeah,
like, it is such a good movie.
It's ridiculously good.
By and far, I think, like without a doubt, easily like it was number one on my list before I'd even looked at another.
Same.
Yeah, well, that Matrix being number two were like before I'd even looked at another.
I was debating about the Matrix because I really do feel like maybe it hasn't sort of aged super well, but I felt that for the impact that it had, and
it's still so good to watch.
Like, it's entertaining.
It's so entertaining.
It's been a while since I've seen it last.
Yeah, like, so. And again, like you said, and like Fight Club definitely doesn't have this problem. Like, Matrix holds up because of who we were at the time we saw it. Fight Club is really like ageless in a way.
I mean, it is and it isn't. Like, obviously, people from now will recognize the lack of certain things, like, you know, it's still from before the time of ubiquitous cell phones, ubiquitous internet, blah, blah, all that sort of stuff.
But I think it's more and this may be a content thing.
Yeah. But it doesn't scream 90s.
No, exactly.
You know, in a way that, like, Matrix
but content-wise, maybe Fight Club's a little harder to just recommend it to anybody, like for anybody to digest the content. Yeah. Like, it is, like you said, it is a bit disturbing. It is a bit, you know, violent. It's very...
It is, but I mean, I don't know.
I mean, it's R. It's got that R rating, you know, versus, like, the
notoriously, so is Matrix for some reason that no one can figure out.
And I mean, like,
no one except for the ratings board can figure out that one.
A few, like specific scenes, like...
It makes no sense. It never has, and it never will.
Yeah, that is,
I don't know why. That movie would have probably made like twice as much if it hadn't been R.
Like a PG rating, PG-13.
You know, the fact that you talked about like how it was like fourth on the list, and that's still pretty high up there. I mean, to
be fair, Fight Club not even top 10 for that year.
Well, of course it wouldn't be. But
like recognizability though, like friggin' Fight Club is you know.
Well, it's well known.
Yeah.
I don't know how much people know about it. Like, I think a lot of people just kind of, you know...
You don't think it's, like, ubiquitously seen?
No.
No?
I
guess just mostly amongst, like, the... Like,
I think a lot of people would know... A lot of people know that, like, oh, yeah, Fight Club, that's the one with... where it's like, he and at the end, it turns out he's both of them, you know, type of thing.
Yeah.
But, like, I don't think people really know, the full extent of what...
He's both of them? What do you mean?
I don't think that people... But I mean, like, in the details, like, the actual scene-by-scene details, I think probably most people aren't that familiar with it.
Yeah, I guess maybe it's so ubiquitous amongst, like, the people we know versus, Yeah.
Well, we were there.
But yeah, no, it is definitely, like, when you can go back to
it's
easily.
Awesome.
It's so good. It's so well written. And just entertaining too. Like, it is really just like the pacing on it is super good.
Well, that's what I was trying to say. Like, when you were saying like, oh, it's in some ways a bit disturbing or violent or whatever, and I was just like, well, that's true, but it's presented in such an entertaining way. That like I never really felt.
Well, some people just might like. There's definitely it's like, you know, I think of like, for example, like my parents would not be able to stomach this movie.
Well,
you know,
sure,
you know.
But, that's
versus like I know they both like the Matrix, like, so, you know.
All right, well, that's fair. But like I say, I've never understood why the Matrix was it shouldn't be, and it's one of those just mysteries. Yeah. One of those mysteries of film that will never be solved.
Yeah. So run down our lists.
Sure.
My number 5, Office Space Galaxy Quest. My number 4 is The Sixth Sense. My number 3 is The Messenger. My number 2 is Matrix. My number 1 is Fight Club.
My 5 is Being John Malkovich. My 4 is Office Space. My 3 is Dogma. My 2 is The Matrix. And my 1 is Fight Club.
Nice.
Fight Club.
Got some also rounds here.
Okay.
So do I.
I had Dogma, Being John Malkovich. The Mummy.
Yeah, I got The Mummy.
Yeah.
I mean,
super entertaining film.
Yeah, it's just really entertaining. Bit of a throwback to the sort of like Indiana Jones kind of thing.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm not saying it's necessarily as good as those, but
but
you know,
different.
but at the time we hadn't really had anything like that for a while, right? Mm-hmm. I mean, you got to remember, '99 is 10 years after the last Indiana Jones movie. Yeah. You know. So it had been like 10 years since there had been an Indiana Jones movie, and then this is before that there was another one.
Yeah, like it filled that gap nicely. It was that real fun adventure film that but quality fun adventure film that I wish there was more of. Yeah, but they just don't come along that often.
It sort of made me it's weird because it's the presentation of it. Because now it seems like, because it's definitely one of those, that went a little too hard on the CG in the 90s, and there's, a lot of, really ambitious effects that kind of look very dated now.
It does date itself. But, I mean, it is very tame compared to, where the sequels went.
Right. But what I'm saying is that, but it's the presentation of it is done well enough that it still kind of overrides that to a certain degree. It's still good. Even though it runs that risk,
and
it's Stephen Sommers, coming post Deep Rising, so
which is kind of
I feel like Deep Rising. I mean, I think Deep Rising's stronger, as an overall thing, but it's much less ambitious. And I feel like Deep Rising was kind of the trial run for what he would then put into the Mummy, right? Because it was it was kind of okay, it's the less ambitious version, so because it has a lot of similar qualities.
Speaking of disturbing, Existenz.
Was Existenz 99?
Existenz was 99.
I missed it. Yeah. Well, I'm a huge Cronenberg fan, so
and it was really for me, it was being exposed to Cronenberg for the first time. And I mean, it's because it tackles sort of some of the same concepts as The Matrix in terms of what is reality, what is
virtual
only
worlds.
in
the Cronenberg way,
the worst way, because it bleeds into that part where Matrix goes.
It was a bit of
Matrix asks more of the questions of like I said, would you rather live in VR that's great but knowing it's VR or the real world that's not great, where Existence is everything is horrifying, and because the VR is so real, you don't know if you're in the VR or you rip the goggles off, but you're still in VR because you only rip them off virtually, kind of concept. Where that nightmare VR that we're most assuredly going to end up in.
There was a little bit of an update of some of the concepts from Videodrome as well.
Yeah, that's actually
it's probably the Cronenberg film that's
there's a movie I haven't seen
most similar to. In terms of the older Cronenberg stuff, for me it was all good. I was just it's what I expected. I remember we went to the theater for it, and I was just that's Cronenberg film. That's exactly what I would have expected. It was great. But not as good as it's not as whole of an experience as some of his really classic stuff. So
retroactively, I wouldn't seen those afterwards.
I wouldn't rate it, amongst the higher things. But definitely, I somehow missed it. I didn't see it listed, so that would definitely be on my. Also, for sure. That was a good movie.
Bring Out the Dead.
Yeah, I can't stand that movie.
Oh, really? You don't like that movie?
I can't deal with it's too.
Oh, it's too heavy.
Yeah, it's too dark. It's too
it's
disturbing.
It's super dark. Scorsese.
If you're gonna be real disturbing, I need that dose of non-reality so I can distance myself from it a little bit. It's too disturbing because it's too that could just literally that could literally be a
documentary.
It could be a true story, and it's that's far too disturbing.
Yeah.
But I understand the quality. Yeah. That's why I remember at the beginning of this, I mentioned how there's a lot of great films from this year that I don't even have on my list or on my Also Rans list because they're just not really my kind of thing. But I still recognize their quality, and that would be a perfect example of one of those.
A movie we've talked about before, Ravenous.
Yeah, also not. I don't like that movie. Everyone that I know likes that movie except me.
So Ravenous, another one that you weren't. South Park.
That's all right. Everyone else I know likes it. Right. So
South Park, bigger, longer, uncut.
Yep.
Yeah, that's funny.
Yep.
Back in the day when we were really into watching South Park.
I considered actually having that on the main list because it's quite a landmark thing. It was huge at the time, but I feel to me, I don't know. It's just something about that whole sort of. In a way, it would have been awesome if, like, you know, they'd started that show, they made the movie, which was kind of like the culmination, and like it was the big sort of and then like that would have been it.
No, 20 more seasons.
And I feel like that kind of dilutes it in a way. Like, as much as they've done some amazing work on the show since, and as much as like the whole satirical nature of it that's become such a strong thing, like that's cool that it just kind of keeps going with that. But at the same time, I feel like it kind of makes like, well, what was the point of the movie then? You know, you know what I mean? Like, it doesn't feel special really anymore.
Well, they did the movie because they could do a movie, they could do a longer story.
Yeah.
You know,
Well, it was also the first time they've done anything that was like completely unleashed, like no limits really on what they could do.
Yeah.
Whereas, but now they kind of have that on the show.
Sure.
Anyways.
Well, it's the nature of like what the network they're on and stuff like that.
You can even watch like uncensored versions of the episodes and stuff now. Which, like, at the time, like doing the movie was kind of a big deal because it was the first time they were able to do things like sort of uncensored and kind of unleashed, you know. But now they do that in every episode.
Well, I mean, because even like when the show originally came out, it was toned down from that original short that we saw, the like the film festival.
There's a couple of shorts,
a couple of shorts that were, I mean, those things were massively offensive.
That's my only sort of feeling about it. It's kind of, I feel like it's sort of pointless now, but
it's still super funny.
Yeah, it's like from a musical point of view, it's awesome. Like really good musical songs and stuff, it's just fun and it's good.
Rushmore.
Yep.
Good comedy.
Yep, very highly rated.
Yeah.
Very well respected. Probably like a big turning point for Wes Anderson. That kind of it's sort of what established, like, you know, that he could be what he became, basically. You know.
Idle Hands. Just as I know that's like it's an
even,
offhand one.
I didn't even write it down because I know it's technically not a good movie at all.
No, but we enjoyed it when we watched it.
I love it.
Yeah,
I still love it.
It's really not.
But it's probably a terrible.
It's a dumb. It's dumb but fun.
It's probably a terrible movie, and that's why I didn't even bother writing it down. But I love it. So.
And how do you like Mystery Men?
No, I've never seen it.
Oh, okay.
I've seen like bits and pieces.
Okay,
but
I know that's like one where like I really like Mystery Men, but I know like a lot of other people don't. Like it's kind of.
I'm sure it's good, but it's just one of those things that
quirky. Yeah.
Yeah.
Couple, and my last two are just a couple of Three Kings, which I think is a little lesser known one, but I quite like it.
Also, crazy high rated.
Yeah, super high rated.
Probably
like a movie that like
it's probably the most high rated of all of the movies that we've talked about.
Yeah,
like 94%.
Yeah. Because I think like closest next one is like Galaxy Quest is like 90. So
but Three Kings is good. I think but
like it's got a title that means nothing and nobody's seen it.
I think the biggest issue for me with it is that I don't remember enough,
and that's why it.
And I didn't think to like.
That's why most of these
I should have just
here.
like watched it when I had a chance, but like I didn't even think about it until it was too late, and like we were about to record, basically.
Yeah.
But I'm sure it could have.
Yeah.
It could well have made the list if I'd watched it more recently and I actually kind of knew what it was more. Because I didn't realize that it was such a highly acclaimed film.
Yeah.
Because I remember seeing it back then.
Yeah.
And I don't remember being like blown away by it. So
I guess it just hit just the right note for people.
My moment of ridiculous David O. Russell fandom didn't arrive until American Hustle.
American Hustle, yeah.
And then since then I've been like, I'm paying real attention to everything that David O. Russell does now. But at the time,
I feel like that was most people. Like,
but at the time when Three Kings came out, like in '99, I wasn't thinking about like, whoa, this David O. Russell guy is pretty awesome. You know, it just didn't land the same way.
I didn't see American Hustle at the time. I only saw American Hustle like about a year ago when you really prompted me to see it. And I saw it and I was like, damn, this is brilliant.
So good.
And my last one is Lake Placid, which I really enjoy Lake
That
Placid.
is also not a good movie.
Yeah, oh, absolutely. Like, it is a dumb giant alligator film.
It's the speed of
giant
alligator films.
That is
just constant one-liners.
Yeah.
Just
like
totally ridiculous.
Oh, just
entertaining, but
Oliver Platt is super good in
Bill Pullman.
Bill Pullman, like it is like really like in like the same way as Speed, like kind of like what are these like actors doing in this kind of not good but good but dumb film?
Yeah.
Like, you know,
the only thing good about Lake Placid is just the constant one-liners, which are amazing.
Yeah. What do you got?
Okay, I got Payback.
Oh,
I
yes.
I really like Payback.
I actually had forgotten about.
I haven't
Payback.
seen it in a really long time. I should watch it again.
I always get a little confused.
I've actually never seen the director's cut version, which is the Payback Straight Up, which is the one that I actually own on DVD.
Yeah,
but I've never actually watched it.
Okay, yeah.
So
I always get confused between stuff that happens in Payback and stuff that happens in Ransom.
Yeah,
like I know. Like if I try to think
Ransom,
about those
he's
films,
just a dude whose son gets kidnapped.
Yeah.
But
just like
in
certain
Payback,
scenes and stuff,
he's like a criminal.
He's
well.
a criminal.
He's like a hardened.
Just certain like some of the the scenes and stuff. I'm like, wait, which movie was that in?
So Rushmore you mentioned, Mummy you mentioned, South Park you mentioned, Sixth Sense you mentioned, Bowfinger.
Bowfinger, yeah, that came up actually the other night.
Great comedy.
The other night when we were talking about movies from the 90s. Yeah,
co-starring Steve Martin and Eddie Murphy, written by Steve Martin, and directed by Frank Oz.
Yeah,
one of the best
comedy
directors.
Like creative comedy, like really like clever.
It's really good. That was another one that came real close to making the list, but I just haven't seen it in a really long time.
99, good year for good comedies.
Yeah, a lot of comedies. Yeah, a lot of good comedies. A movie which is not a good movie, really. Well, it is and it isn't.
Yeah,
it is, but it's not as bad as what people say.
Okay,
because it's a very widely panned, huge box office bomb, very panned.
Oh, okay,
and it's not as bad as people say, but it's also not great, and that's the 13th Warrior.
Oh,
but the 13th Warrior has something
nothing about
makes the 13th Warrior has something that elevates it, that makes it worthwhile putting on the list for me, which is it has that thing that I really love where it handles the question of language very interestingly.
Yes, because
it's all about this.
It's Antonio Banderas, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Who, despite being a Spanish guy, he plays an Arab sort of explorer who was an actual historical person, and he.
You call that brownwashing?
Yeah, it's brownwashing.
Yeah,
and he made contact with a group of Vikings.
Yeah,
and he wrote about his experience of experiencing this completely different culture, and so the 13th Warrior is basically based on that historical element crossed with kind of the Beowulf story, sort of.
Right.
It was based on the book Eaters of the Dead by Michael Crichton.
That's right.
By
yes.
Michael Crichton, the author of Jurassic Park and many, many others.
Mm-hmm.
What they do is when he first meets is that his dialogue and everything is all regular English because he's the point of view character. Mm-hmm. So it's it theoretically, of course, it's really Arabic or whatever because he's an Arab, but for the audience, it's just regular English because it's an American movie. So we're seeing his perspective, and then when he meets the Vikings, they're all speaking Norse because he doesn't understand them.
Yeah.
And then as he spends time with them and gets to know them, he starts learning their language. So as he's learning their language, and it shows him working on it and stuff, as he's learning their language, gradually the dialogue of the Vikings, they start dropping in random English words as he starts to learn. And then eventually when he becomes fluent enough, then all the Viking characters are regular English because, again, we're seeing it from his perspective.
Yeah.
So once he becomes fluent, it becomes all, which is awesome.
Yeah.
Such a cool way to do it.
Really creatively
Such a cool way to do it. We talked about this before, with Hunt for Red October.
Yeah.
There's a number of movies where they find really interesting ways to deal with the language issue, and I love that.
Being
it's
the
so
nature
cool
how because he's with them for a long period of time.
Yeah.
doing it slowly like that works.
Yeah. Oh, it's awesome.
Yeah.
Because I mean, and this because they even have stuff like they have things like they're teaching him like parts of their language and stuff, but he's showing them things about like writing and stuff, because of course at that time, like pre-Christian,
they didn't have
times
language.
They didn't have writing in the way that we understand now. They had symbols and runes and stuff, but they didn't have like regular written out language. So he's like showing them like, oh, writing, and they're like, whoa, like crazy, and it's just really cool. It's just and then it all ends with this crazy battle, Viking battle like stuff with these weird like kind of proto humans and stuff. It's weird, but yeah, it's so not really a great film, but it just does certain things really cool, and it's very memorable to me, and I just really like it. I think it's really it's really underrated for
I saw it pop up and I was just like, I don't remember much about
it's like a really low rated movie, and it was like a big huge, it was one of those like legendary like biggest bombs ever, up there with like Last Action Hero and those kind of things where it's like these like massive movies that cost so much to make, and then they just bomb so badly. It's like one of those. But it's definitely, it's not as bad as that. It's pretty decent. Three Kings you already talked about, Messenger you talked about, and then Sleepy Hollow, one of the ultimate Tim Burton movies. I mean, like, it has everything. It's almost the point where Tim Burton almost kind of moved into like self-parody. Yeah, because like it's almost so Tim Burton. It's like almost too Tim Burton.
And that was like when I saw Sleepy Hollow pop up. It's been so long since I've seen it. I couldn't remember. I was like, was this okay or was this bad?
It's good.
Yeah, was it good?
Oh, it's good.
Okay.
But like it's teetering because it's almost the point where like Tim Burton might be starting to get a little too far up his own butt, kind of point. Like it's almost a little too like on the nose. It almost sort of is like people trying to like like, hey, let's make like a movie just like a Tim Burton movie. Yeah. And then they make it, and it's like, wow, that's like really on the nose and obvious, like Tim Burton movie, but it was Tim Burton doing it.
It was literally Tim Burton doing it. So yeah, what do you?
So I mean, I think. Definitely, it could be argued this is kind of where like lapsing into a bit of self-parody started to happen, but it's still pretty cool. Johnny Depp's good in it. It's really good visually. And it still has at least one quote that I do all the time, which is, whenever people talk about something being taken. Like, have you taken that order? Or like any kind of like taken sort of thing. And I always do the taken by the headless horseman, because it's the whole thing about like they find the bodies and they never have heads, and it's always just where are the heads? Taken by the headless horseman. So, anyways,
nice.
That's it. That's all I got.
Yeah. No, excellent.
So yeah, most of my honorable mentions are like things that I have some sort of like personal attachment to, or that I liked, but like I know they're not necessarily great movies. I mean, some of them were great, but
I had one more actually. Notting Hill.
Okay, yeah,
that's a romantic comedy.
You're the rom-com guy. Yeah, I'm not really familiar with that one.
Good real good Hugh Grant.
Yeah, well,
real funny.
Yeah. That's what he does.
That British-American character crossover. And
it's what he does.
Yeah. So, that's our top 5 in 1999.
And the 90s are done.
And with that, we will never talk about a film from the 90s again.
That is not a true statement.
I thought that's what we were doing here.
Not a true statement.
Oh.
Anyways.
All right. So next episode is our episode 100. Never thought we were going to make it, but we did.
I did.
Like, we just kept doing them. Now we made it to 100.
After a certain point, I was like, well, yeah, sure we will.
Yeah, because after we did 97, I thought, well, we might as well do 100.
I didn't think we would make it. It wasn't so much that I doubted we'd make it this far. I doubted that we would make it this far without ever missing any.
Not a single week. Yeah.
But.
So, next week what we're doing is something a little different, as it will be...
Yeah, well, after, 10 back-to-back top fives of the 90s.
We're gonna, because we're going to
do something
do
a little
the
different.
only decade we have not touched on, which is
2000.
2000 to 2009. Yeah, because we did 10 to 14 as our first top 5.
Yeah, because it was past 5 years.
Past 5
when
years.
we started. We
started this in 2015.
Yeah.
Whew.
Well, we're coming up on our 2 years as well.
Yeah,
so. So we're
holy crap,
for
my
the
brain just
2000s,
crapped out.
instead of just doing like a normal top 5 like we normally do.
Yeah.
For the 2000s, we're each gonna bring basically our short lists.
Yeah.
And then we're gonna hash out
a top 10.
I guess a top 10.
Yeah.
You know.
So
an overall
5
top
movies
10.
for about each of us.
Yeah, because oftentimes,
no crossover that week. Next week.
Yeah. I mean, well, the crossover will be basically...
Well, that's why we have 10 select spots.
But the crossover will be probably most of the selections, because most of them will be the ones that like, oh, you have that? Well, I have that too. Well, obviously it's on the list.
Yeah.
You know, but so we'll kind of talk about
Somehow, at the end of it, we're only going to come up with 9 films.
Yeah. So we'll talk about it, we'll hash it out, and end up with like a overall top 10 for... 2000s, which I mean, I feel like that works well with like sort of 0, 0, 0, the theme,
sure. The aughts,
and
I hate that term.
I never use it. So
yeah, no, I've
never really thought about it because I just think
it just like retroactively that's how I always gets referred to as, and I was like
2000s.
The 2000s. Yeah.
If you just say aughts, that could be like
the night could be the 19 to 1910. You know, like it's not numerically specific enough.
Yeah.
I guess it's neither saying like the 90s, but you know,
true. But yeah, well, actually, it's a funny story about that. I'll just quickly say, I was listening.
I always assume I'm referring to decades I was alive.
Yeah, exactly. I listened to a bit of the Mercury Theater on the Air, which is the radio program that Orson Welles did. The famous War of the Worlds broadcast was part of that series. And it was basically like him taking his theatrical team and doing radio plays, basically.
Yeah.
I was listening to some of those, and the second episode is they do Treasure Island. And each episode, Orson Welles does kind of like an intro where he sets up like what they're going to be doing. The first episode is actually Dracula, and it's actually really good. But it's a really good version of Dracula. But he'll usually do like a little setup thing, and in the Treasure Island one, at one point he's talking about like the 80s.
But it's the 1880s.
And he's literally, because these radio programs are from the 30s, late 30s, so he's talking about like, oh, you know, back in like the 80s,
50
blah,
years
blah.
ago.
And I was like, oh yeah. I was like, I guess back then, then.
Because you just don't...
It was the 80s, you know?
like that mode of referencing decades seems much more modern than
But it's
that.
not. Back then, you know, they used to refer to like, oh, like back in the good old 90s, and it was like literally the 1890s, you know? It's literally like 1890s. So I think that's funny that's been a thing like for so long, and it just kind of changes each century.
So that's what we're gonna be doing next week. We're gonna hash out a top 10 list.
Yeah.
And so that should be interesting.
Yeah. Something
and then
totally different, but
and then after that we'll get back into actually watching movies and talking about them.
Yeah. Well, we've watched a few.
Yeah.
But
I've seen a couple.
Yeah.
But yeah. So thanks everyone for tuning in to episode 99, and we'll see you next week for episode 100.
All right.
Till then, I'm Chris.
Big milestone.
Grr.
This is Emmett.
Cheers.
Bye-bye.